All right. It's 3 p.m. South African time and 9 a.m. Eastern time. So there are a few more that may join the webinar. But for those that are on time, thank you very much for coming. So in this session, we're going to talk about the best practices with Pluto LMS branches. So we're going to head off the session. It's 3 o'clock now. Others may join the call, but we're not going to delay you guys at all. So thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate that. So yeah, in this session, I just thought I'd let you know, my name is Ian Faree, founder of Pluto LMS. Thank you so much for taking the time today. So just in terms of the basic agenda and structure of the call, we're going to discuss what a branch is, and then we're going to show you how to create branches on Pluto LMS, adding users to those branches, and then of course automation, which is incredibly powerful with branches. And then we'll talk about the reporting with branches. And then finally at the end, we will have about 15 minutes or so for a Q&A. So you can post your questions in the chat, and then we can respond to that as we go through them. Just for your reference, this call is recorded. So this will be shared post the webinar on YouTube. Great. So firstly, what is a branch? Well, a branch is a collection of users. So it's a collection of users at a site-wide level. So another name for a branch would be a cohort. So what's useful about branches is the fact that you can use it to manage your users and group them. You can apply site themes to those branches. So each branch inside of your LMS can have their own LMS theme. We'll show you what that looks like later. And then in terms of branches, you can also help control automation within your LMS and then apply bulk actions. And what's incredibly useful is being able to split the user information across your site. Particularly when it comes to reporting, it's useful to have these branch information split. Great. So firstly, we're going to jump into creating a site branch. So there's a number of ways you can do this. You can create site branches manually. You can bulk upload them via CSV. You can use a tool called Zapier. We'll jump into that, as well as API. We'll also show you how that works. So firstly, with creating site branches, we're going to show you how to do this manually at first. So it's really simple. So once you've logged into your LMS instance, you're going to click on Site Admin, which is on the left-hand side, followed by Users, and then you're going to click on Branches. For some of the older clients of ours, this may be called cohorts. So that would be the same thing. And what's also really nice, everything that you're seeing here and everything that you will see in the webinar will be available on the support center, where it shows you step-by-step guides as well. So after clicking on branches, you're going to click add new branch. You can give that branch a name. For example, let's say you have a marketing department as well as a sales department within your organization. You may want to create a branch for those two departments, and then you can optionally give it a branch ID. You can give it a description. For example, this is the sales team based in South Africa or based in Canada, for example, and then you can apply a theme. I'll show you what that looks like later. And then you can go and save changes. So once you've created your branches, let's say it's the sales team, marketing team, etc., or however you want to branch out your LMS, you'll see that created over here. Great. And then if manually is not good for you, you can also do this much quicker via bulk CSV. So what's useful is, you're going to go through Site Admin again, click on Users, click on Branches, and this time you're going to click on Bulk Upload Branches. So what's really nice about this, you can have your CSV file, and you simply just need one column, and then you can bulk upload this, for example, HR department, trainees, managers, etc. And then it will go ahead and create your branches. So if you've got 100 different branches, a CSV might be useful for you. And then with Zapier. So the other way you can create branches is via Zapier. So just to give you a bit of background as to what Zapier is, Zapier is a middleman. So Zapier allows you to connect Pluto LMS to 3,000 plus applications. So how this is useful is, for example, if you've got a CRM integration, for example, let's say you're using Zendesk or you're using HubSpot or Salesforce, you can use Zapier to create branches. So whenever there's a new branch created in Salesforce, for example, you can automatically add that to Pluto LMS as well. Or if you're using Google Sheets, you can create branches that way too. So just to give you an example, if you Google Pluto LMS Zapier, there are a whole host of various apps you can add via Zapier. All the popular tools. Bamboo HR is also really useful, particularly if you're using this for your human resources within your company. You can have different Bamboo HR branches and then create that inside of Pluto LMS. So there's 3,000 plus third-party apps that you can use. So just giving you an example, you connect your third party like that. And then what's nice within Zapier is you can create a workflow. So let's say there's a new record in Salesforce, you connect that to Pluto LMS, and it will create a branch. This can apply to anything, as mentioned previously, HubSpot, any other tool that you may want to be connecting. And then there's also the API. So if the third-party application doesn't exist on Zapier, you can build a custom API. We're going to do another webinar on this. We're also going to do another webinar on Zapier. But the easy way to do this is just to click on Site Admin, Integrations, Manage Token. That will generate the API key for you, and then you can connect that to your custom API. So once you've created branches, the next step is to add those users to your branches. So this can be done manually again via CSV, Zapier, and API. So you can create branches using these ways, and you can also bulk add users to your branches this way. So first of all, manually, the way to do that, again, quite simply, site admin, users, branches, and then as you can see, your previous branches that you already uploaded are on the platform. So there's a little person icon over here. So once you click on that person icon, you'll be able to then simply manually add the various users to that branch. So this is useful if you have, let's say, 10 or 20 users you may want to add. This becomes quite useful. But of course, if you've got more than that, let's say you've got 100, 200, 2,000 users, you probably want to be doing this via an Excel CSV or any CSV format that you have. So the way to do that is quite simple. All you need is the username of that particular student or user that's on the platform. And then you're going to use this syntax over here. So cohort 1, and then you're going to add the cohort ID over there. So you've got cohort 2, cohort 3, in other words, branch 1, branch 2. So you can add users to multiple branches, which becomes quite useful via CSV. As I said, this is quite useful if you've got 500 or more users on the platform. CSV becomes quite useful. And the way to do that is quite simple. You're going to click on Site Admin, Users, bulk upload users via CSV, and then you're going to drop that file in there. So as I mentioned, everything that I am going through here is on our support center. We will send links to everyone on this call afterwards as well, so you can refer to that. And then of course, you can add users to branches via Zapier. So again, this is really useful if you're using a CRM tool or something managing your users externally, HubSpot CRM, Salesforce, maybe MailChimp. This becomes quite useful. Let's say you're adding someone to your MailChimp campaign, your MailChimp software, and every time someone's added to MailChimp, you want to automatically add them to a branch inside of Pluto LMS. The same will work for Salesforce, and there's 500 plus CRMs that is useful to connect to. So that's quite useful. Or if you're using a Google Sheet, every time you add a record to a Google Sheet, you can add that user to a branch. This is particularly useful. Let's say you're using Bamboo HR and you've got the different departments, etc., and you want the users to sync across the system. So not only can you add users to Pluto LMS, you can also do it the other direction. So every time a user is added on Pluto LMS, you can add that user to your CRM. So it works both ways, which is quite useful. And then, of course, if the tool doesn't exist on Zapier or you prefer using an API, you can generate that token for yourself and connect it to your custom application. Great. So in terms of automation, there's quite a number of useful tools that Pluto LMS has for you that will help you use the system and let the system work for you. So a couple of automations that are available with branches in particular is the ability to perform bulk actions. So for example, messaging, and we'll go through that in a second. A profile field sync. So every time a profile field of a particular user is updated, you can sync them to a number of branches, whether that be one branch or several. There's an automation that comes with that. Course enrollment. So you can bulk enroll users that are part of a particular branch into a course. You can even restrict content based on the branch, and then we can apply themes to branches. So we'll go through this in a bit of detail now. So with automation with branches, firstly, we're going to talk about bulk actions. So when you click on site admin, users, followed by bulk actions, it's going to be quite useful because you can filter by your branch ID. So let's say there's a particular branch in your organization, again, using the example of the sales team. Let's say you want to send only your sales team a message on the system. You can filter that branch and then choose send a message. That's quite useful, and then only those users will receive messages that are part of that branch. There are a couple others, as you can see on the screen. You can delete branches. So if you want to filter and delete all of the users that are part of a particular branch, you can do that. You can download just that user list. You can force them to change a password, and you can also perform bulk actions to add users to a branch. That is an option as well in terms of bulk actions. Then we have profile field sync. This forms as a filter on your LMS system. So if we click on site admin and we head over to users, you'll see an option called auto filter branch users. This is incredibly powerful because what you can do is create filters on your system. So if you're going to click on create filter, you can give that filter a name. So this would be some sort of rule that you would like to create. And this works with profile fields. So let's say a user signs up in your system, or one of their profile fields, you can create custom profile fields as well. So let's say you created a custom profile field called location. And let's say you're working in a particular country and you wanted to split your users by city. Inside of their custom profile field, they would have various cities, New York, etc., as part of their profile field. And then what this will do is you can say, based on that profile field, I want to assign the users to the various branches. So New York will have its own branch, for example. Washington will have its own branch. And this will automatically update when there are any changes. So let's say a user moves from New York to Washington. It will then, once their profile field is updated, it will automatically switch them over to the other branch. So that's how the automation works. It keeps your system up to date. For example, in a school context, let's say you have a grade 7 branch. Once they move over to grade 8 and their profile field is updated to grade 8, it'll automatically shift those users across to the new grade 8 branch. So there's multiple various ways that you can use this automation to your benefit. Or you've got various departments, someone gets promoted or moves departments, everything creates a filter for you like that. So what's nice is once you've created the rule, you can then see how many users were added to that particular branch, and then click on the user icon. You can edit that rule, you can delete the rule, it's up to you. Just a word of caution, if you are going to create an automation, just be sure that you don't break your own rule. So for example, if you want to group all of your users by first name, let's say you want to group all users whose name are John in a particular branch. just remember that if you update the name of John, he will be removed from that branch. So just be cautious about breaking your own rules when you do create them. Great. And then moving on to course enrollment. This is particularly useful because let's say you've created a profile field called New York, and now you've got 500 users that are part of the New York branch. You can have a particular course that's dedicated to New York. And what's really nice about this is once you've got that branch, you can automatically enroll those users into that particular course, and it keeps up to date. So when you're on your course and you click on enrollment methods, it's going to ask you to add a method. So you can click on branch sync. Once you've clicked on branch sync, what that's going to do is ask you which branch you want to sync with. So let's say it's New York, and every time someone is added to New York, they will be automatically enrolled into this particular course. So depending on your use case, this becomes useful if every time you add a user to a branch, they get enrolled into a course. And what's nice is, let's say your branch is New York, they can be added to multiple courses. So instead of going into, let's say, 5 or 6 different courses, you just add the user to the branch, and then they'll be automatically enrolled into the various courses that you've set up this rule for. And then once you've added the rule, you will then see exactly how many users were added. And you can also, when you click on enrolled users, you can see exactly who has been enrolled. What's also really nice is the ability to restrict content in your courses based on the branch. So for example, if you are in a course and you click on edit course material, you'll go to the editing page, and then let's say you want to restrict the final exam only to a particular branch. So when you click on edit settings, you can add a restriction to that exam, and you can restrict it by branch. So this becomes useful if you want different branches to see different content within the same course. So you don't have to create multiple courses to service the different branches. You can just have one course and then restrict content based on the branch that you've defined. And then what's quite nice about this, the people who are enrolled into that course will not see the content unless they belong to a particular branch, and depending on how you've set up the rule. Another great tool is the ability to apply themes. So as mentioned earlier, let's say you want to show a different theme to all of your different branches. So this becomes useful. Let's say you are offering external training. Let's say you're an academy and you're offering training to a client. Let's call them client A, and you're offering the same course, same training to a different client. Let's call them client B. When client A logs in, they can be associated with a branch. Let's call that branch A. And then when client B logs in, they can be associated to branch B. So when they log into the system, it's really nice because they're going to see different themes. So this is an example of branch A, and then this is an example of branch B. So depending on how complex you would like to set this up, you can have a different logo for your client. So when they log into the system, they'll see their branding, and that's the same course material. And as mentioned earlier, you can restrict the content that they see based on the branch. So you can offer the same course to different clients, so you don't have to duplicate work. And that's quite nice for offering your LMS system externally or even internally, depending on your preferences. There will be different themes that the branches will see as they log into the system. Now that you're offering, multiple branches, you've got that set up on your system based on profile fields, you've enrolled, you've created a number of courses. This becomes incredibly useful, even if you just use branches for reporting, to segment or split your user information. Particularly if you just want to pull a report for client A and you want to pull a report for client B, having different branches will help you do so more easily. So for example, at a site-wide level, if you want to pull a report at a site-wide level, you're going to click on Site Admin. click on reports, and there are a number of various reports available to you depending on the plan that you're on. And then when you click on 360 overview, it's going to show you the reports for your LMS system. And let's say you want to have a deep dive into, for example, course progress. So once you click on the more button, you can actually filter your reports by the various branches. And as I mentioned, you can pull a report for client A, you can pull a report for client B. That's really useful. And all of this information is exportable in various formats. So you can export it to CSV, you can export it to Excel, a PDF, and you can even schedule an email, depending on the plan that you're on, to yourself, let's say weekly, monthly, depending on how frequently you want to get that report, you can do so. And that's quite useful. And then at a course level, let's say you want to see the progress through your course, as an example. On the right-hand side, you want to look at the completion progress. You want to click on Overview of Students. When you click Overview of Students, what's quite nice is if you've set up a rule that syncs your course branch to a course group, you can then filter by your branches too. So let's say you just want to have a look at Department A, you can click on Department A, etc., and then it will filter your course progress and your course reports too by the various branches that you have set up. Great. So now I just wanted to, we've spent about 20 minutes or so. We have until quarter to 4 South African time. It would be 9:45 Eastern time, New York time. So if there are any questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat. And then what I will do is actually take a live dive into Pluto LMS, the live version, and then we can answer those questions should there be any. Okay, great. So we've got a question, can a user be part of multiple branches? The answer is yes, absolutely. So when you click on Site Admin, and it depends on how you're adding the users, you click on Users followed by Branches. That way you can then, depending on the branch you're using, I'm just going to show you a manual way. You can add the user. So over here, we've got student demo in branch C. Let's go to branch B. We can then click on student demo over here, add that user, and then again, student demo is part of branch B. And later, if you want to remove, you can do so as well and remove that user. How many branches can you, there's another question over here. How many branches can you add? Can you have a different theme for each one? Great. So it depends on the add-ons that you are having. So you can have unlimited branches on your Pluto LMS instance. So you can have as many branches as you need. In terms of themes, we do offer 3 free themes as part of your package. So if you want to add more, there is an add-on which is displayed on our pricing page for more than 3 themes. So you can have unlimited branches, but if you're going to apply true multi-tenancy in terms of having different themes, there's a small add-on per theme, per branch that you are going to add on. So we have another question. Are there further groupings below the branch level? So assuming you're meaning a sub-branch, so what you can do on the system is you can create a sub-branch, but it would just be based on the naming convention that you use. So because users can be added to multiple branches, this becomes quite useful. So let's say your parent branch is a country, let's just call it USA, and a sub-branch is a city, which is New York. But within that sub-branch, you want a particular suburb. So you can just name them accordingly. And because you can add users to multiple branches, it depends on the smart naming convention you use. You can certainly do so. For example, USA _New York _suburb 1 USA underscore New York underscore suburb 2. So yes, you can further group it that way. We have another question. What is the difference between a branch and a group? So the difference between a branch and a group is that a branch is handled at a site-wide level. So if we click on site admin, users, branches, the options that you have here is handled at a site-wide level. So this is particularly useful if you don't want to create 7 groups for every course that you have. You just want to create one branch, and that can be used at a site-wide level. The advantage of a group is the fact that it's at a course level. So a group is not a branch. So when you go into a course and you go course admin, users, course groups, these groups will only be specific to the course that you're creating. Let's say, at a school example, you're setting up teams that need to submit assignments, but it's not useful to have those teams available at a site-wide level. It's just for that particular course. Then you would use a course group. Otherwise, you would use a site-wide branch. We have another question. Can you link branches to groups? The answer is yes. So this becomes useful for whatever reason you may have or your specific use case. You can actually connect the two. So you can create groups based on the site branches on your system. So that will be done under the enrollment methods, and then you can click on branch members to group. So what's useful about that is every time someone's added to a branch, you can also add them to a group. So that helps you with splitting your course reports as well in doing so. We have another question. Can I apply multiple domains to multiple branches? That's a great question. So the use case for this would be, let's say you have client A and client B. So what we do have on our roadmap is the ability to do so. So that is in development, where you can offer your LMS instance using multiple domains. Let's say client A.yourdomain.com, client B.yourdomain.com, and then when they access the respective domain, they'll be able to log into the system using that domain. So that is on our roadmap. The current workaround and the current way that Pluto LMS is set up is it's one central domain. So let's say it's yourcompany.com, and you can redirect users using multiple other domains. So client A.yourcompany.com, you can redirect them to your LMS. What is quite useful too is the fact that, let's say you're setting up multiple categories, you can redirect them to a category page using that URL. So the client will only see the courses within their particular branch. What is useful about that, in that redirect, if you go to homepage display, what's quite nice is you can either display all courses to everyone, or you can show the users their enrolled courses only. So if you've got multiple clients on the platform, you may want to select show user enrolled courses only, so that they only see the courses that they belong to, and it just creates a cleaner experience for your client or your students. Okay, we have another question just asking for a bit of elaboration on Zapier. So we are going to do a separate webinar on Zapier, but just to show you and explain some of those use cases again, Zapier is not inside of Pluto LMS. Zapier is a separate service. So when you Google Zapier, you'll see their service come up. So Pluto sits on the Zapier platform. So there's various automations you can have. And sticking to the topic of this webinar with branches, this just becomes really useful when you want to connect different systems to Pluto LMS using various other third-party tools. Some of the more popular ones are the CRM group. So, the likes of HubSpot, for example, if you're using HubSpot as a CRM, when you click on this, this connection, what it will do is show you all the ways you can connect HubSpot to Pluto LMS. So that's really nice, and it shows you various triggers and actions. So just to explain the difference between a trigger and an action. So a trigger would be some event that occurs. So this is something, if you pull the trigger of a gun, it will initiate the firing of a bullet. So in this case, if there's a new calendar event, that would trigger some automation. Or if a new course is created, new group, and in this webinar, a new user is added to a branch. So as the new user is added to the branch, you can trigger an action. So an action is something that happens after the trigger. So when there's a new user added to the branch, you can connect this in various ways, depending on the action that you wish to do. So there's 3,000 plus different applications. In this HubSpot example, if there's a user added to a Pluto LMS branch, you can add that contact to a list inside of HubSpot or Salesforce or any other CRM that you're using, or even a Google Sheet if you're just trying to keep an external record for this. So there's 3,000 plus applications and many actions and triggers available on the platform. So the major advantage with Zapier is the fact that you don't need to hire a developer to set up all of your integrations. It's really simple, and the actual connection is already done because Pluto LMS sits on the Zapier marketplace. All right, we've got another question in here. Could you give an example of how a profile field auto filter to branch rule can be broken? Great. So just going back one step, when we talk about the filtering rules, when you click on site admin users, auto filter branch users, so you can create various filters. So when I click on create filter, I'm going to call this a random new rule. You can call it whatever you wish to. So what you'll do here is decide on which branch you're going to be using this rule on. So in this example, we're going to be using this rule on branch A. So as you can see, these are all of the profile fields that exist on your system. And bear in mind, you can create custom profile fields, so you can add to this list, for example. So just using an example, let's say you've got a custom profile field called organization. So the question is, how do you break this rule? Well, let's say you create a rule saying, if that user's organization is X, assign them to branch A. That's the rule. So you'll click on Save Changes, create the rule. Now, the way you'll break that rule is if that user no longer actually belongs to organization X, then this rule will no longer apply to them. So often, it's a really powerful tool in terms of automation, but you just got to be wary about the rules that you create. So if that user moves to organization Y, this rule will no longer apply to them. That's how it can be broken. Great, we have another question. Are there any topics people here would like to cover in future webinars? So that's a great one. So we will be releasing a breakdown schedule of upcoming webinars. So we will be committing to doing this at least once weekly. So we will be dedicating a particular subject to the webinar, just to go into more detail. For example, user management or Zapier or API, we'll actually have a dedicated session on that. So thank you so much for joining the call. Really appreciate your time. If anyone wants to post in the chat any webinar they would like to see, more than welcome to do so. And then we can obviously tailor that for the most popular demand. Zapier is certainly going to be one of them. We will be doing that more than likely within the next month. So Zapier being a third-party service, while we can't provide support for Zapier, many people do have questions on it. So we actually want to cover that in a webinar, how you can connect to external systems with Pluto LMS, what's the best practices with connecting Pluto LMS and Zapier. we'll definitely have a dedicated session on that. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. Thank you once again. We'll keep you posted with the upcoming webinars. Have a great day further, whether it's morning or afternoon. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll catch you same time next week, Wednesday. Have a great day. Cheers, everybody.